Hello everyone, welcome back to another stream on Fantasy Football Scout. Today we're going to run through my game week 20 score. Again, we are recording this just before the Sunday kickoffs at 11 o'clock. So there are many games still to play, but we're also going to take a look into the future at game week 21, how I'm lining up for that week. And I'm joined by Chris, an absolute veteran of the game and co-founder of Fantasy Football Scout. How are we, Chris?
I'm not in the best state at the moment, actually. Can I just say, first of all, Happy New Year to you and everyone out there. And I do hope that 2026 has got off on a slightly better front than mine. I basically injured my leg. I got a hamstring, what I thought was a strain, not hamstring, a calf. What I thought was a strain turned out to be a tear playing football in a parents versus sons football game before Christmas. And I'm now hopping around on crutches. You can see behind me, I'm over there, my crutches. Well, can I get out of the way? Oh, there are my crutches anyway. And and I'm on painkillers and having to take injections for blood thinners. So it's been a very interesting personal time. But but also I've had some frustrating game weeks, I must admit. It kind of was going all right. Around 100 points, scoring like 20, 17 or 18, I think. And then like last week was frustrating, and this week has not started the best, which we'll talk about as we talk about your team and how you've done so far. So, but yeah, how about you? How's your year started?
Yeah,
How's
Happy New Year to
game
you
week
too, Chris.
19 going? Game week 20 rather going for you? As you say, we're 4 games in. How's it going for you so far?
Yeah, so far, so bad. Do stick with us if you are listening. I know this is coming a bit early. There are many games to play and a lot can change, but we'll try to talk a bit more into the future about chip strategy. And regardless of the results, unless there are some big injuries, what I plan on doing going into game week 21. So, good morning to you all, and hello everyone in chat. And if you are enjoying the content on Fantasy Football Scout, do hit the like button and subscribe. But for game week 20, a pretty bad start for me, Chris, and we'll take a look at my team in just a second. But from who has played in my team, I've had triple Arsenal, and not the right triple Arsenal. Going into the game week, I had a few decisions to make. One of them was potentially bringing in Gabriel early. I decided to opt out of that route. I own Piero Capier, and I also own Jurrien Timber, who looks like he's going to get some late DEFCON after the opted changes. And I've also got Bukayo Saka in midfield. Now, the only reason that is heavily disappointing is because how good the likes of Declan Rice and Gabriel did this game week. Chris, do you own any of these players, and what do you think of
I
it?
have double Arsenal. I got rid of Timber a couple of weeks ago. Just did a great change to get Timber out, and I brought Keenan Dallow in. One didn't play, one got 2 points. I think. Anyway, but this week I did have two Arsenal players. I had Gabriel, brought him in this week. Great decision. Should be happy with that, right? 9 points despite no clean sheet. Also, I've got Damien. I've got Rice. I've got Declan Rice. I've got Rice on my bench. I've got Declan Rice sat there with his little injured. Oh, I'm injured. Oh, I don't think I'm playing. Oh, look at my flag, looking up at me. Oh, 50%. I'm probably not going to turn up. Sitting there going, oh, look at my 17 points. First on the bench, but the chances of them coming on are not great, considering it have to be Foden or Gomes or Garner or someone else not starting. I can't see it. So I'm absolutely gutted. I think it's worse not owning him and not having him on the team, I feel, than having not even getting him in the first place. I've been with Rice for a long time. I couldn't afford Saka back when people were going Saka. Rice looked like a solid option for DEFCONs. I'm a big fan of his. But yeah, with the injury, and also it was between him and Welbeck, and it looked like he wasn't going to play. Welbeck had, but Brighton had Burnley. Welbeck usually gets a goal. He comes on for like 70-minute cameo, 1-pointer. Welbeck sat there going 16-point swing. I'm over. I'm rage quitting right now. Rage quitting this event. So yeah, at the moment I'm on 22 points. I also got Verbruggen, we did all right. I've got Gabriel, and so it's not been disastrous, but it's very much. I've got Rodgers as well. It's very much what might have been so far this game week. I mean, again, I'll probably end up with a small green arrow, but as anybody looking at this can see, I need progress, and like a nice 16-point swing would have been very nice. Thank you very much, but it looks unlikely to happen now. I'm over it. Clearly, I've let it go, as you can tell. But yeah, so that's so far. I'm doing better than you, I guess. But I've had 4 players play, and one of them only got a point. So Yeah, it's frustrating, should we say, to say the least.
That is absolutely what FPL nightmares are made of. But let's take a look at my team for game week 21 and hopefully, or for game week 20, and hopefully, Chris, it'll help you heal when you see the amount of points that I'm on. So let's pull up my team currently for game week 20. So let me quickly run through my team for anyone who is listening on podcast. On goal, I've got Allison. 4 at the back, Hincapié, O'Reilly, Timber, and Hall. 4 in midfield, Rayan Cherky, Mateus Cunha, Bukayo Saka, and Mohamed Kudus two up top with Erling Haaland with the armband and Raul Jimenez beside him. On the bench, we've got Dubravka, Anderson, Thiago, and Weaver on the bench. So my team is quite interesting. I feel like I've differentiated myself one way or another going into this game week. I actually took a -4 hit going into the game week, which is very suboptimal considering we just got the 5 free transfers, but absolutely no shame from my end, and I really feel like my team needed it. The hit I took going into the game week was selling Florian Wirtz and also Yankuba Minta, which looks like somewhat of a decent transfer now that Minta missed out. And Florian
Yeah.
Wirtz has a chance of missing this game versus Fulham with a slight hamstring injury. And I
Can
actually
I
would.
just say? Can I just? I just say. I love the way you play the game. Like, obviously, you're much better than me, so chapeau off. I just love. Like last week, we're on a or a couple of weeks, whenever it was we were last on, talking about Wirtz and what a ballsy shout it was to bring in Captain Wirtz. He's gone. He's straight out. He's in 1 week. He's out the next. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's madness. 4-point hit. Boom. Off. But yeah, I mean, Cunha, it could prove to be Cunha could prove to be genius, and we'll see. But yeah, no, I love it. I love the way you play. It's kind of chaos. It's fantastic. Oh, bless you.
Thank you, thank you. It makes for good watching. And the week before that, Chris, which you would have missed, was I would have brought in Antoine Semenyo also for 1 week, and he scored a 10-pointer before I moved him on to Florian Wirtz, and who have also, I'm very cutthroat. I'm like Roman Abramovich for Chelsea. Like get me in, get him out straight away, get the points and run. But there are some interesting moves for sure. Again, I'll be quite hopeful with Rayan Cherky going into Chelsea at home.
Yeah.
Mohamed Kudus, who I brought in for Wirtz also with Sunderland at home. And as a Spurs fan, I've watched this again. I always feel like fixture brings form, no matter how poor Tottenham have been. And I could go onto an extended Tottenham rant, but I often do this. And I think I'll hold off for the time being. But to keep it brief, I feel like Spurs could, from an attacking point of view anyway, whatever about how we defend or what result we'll get in these run of fixtures that we have, I feel like from an output perspective, I do feel like we'll score a couple of goals in the next 4 or 5 games. And Sunderland at home, as poor as we've been at home, I feel like we can still get results out of these games. And Mohamed Kudus, who has very high minutes in my opinion and decent pen share and on some set pieces.
I think Kudus is great. Could be a great differential. I've been on Gimaresh with similar sort of kind of play a lot. Not a lot of people on him, and it did really well for me last week. One of the few that did. Before we go into looking ahead, because there's not all we can do about this week. There's only 4 games. What have we learned from this week, really quickly? Like Arsenal winning, defensively fragile. Villa look kind of on it now. Wolves, though, are we now? Is Wolves? Have you at all looking at Wolves going? Hang on, 4.5 million playing forward. Mane, he's a cheeky mink. So have you got any thought at all about that?
Yeah,
4.5 million looks good as well. Looks a good forward.
Let's start with Mane, and then we'll talk about the Arsenal guys, because I do have an opinion on that. And
yeah, I mean, Arsenal defence be useful for next week as well, right?
First off, just to cover, Sunderland is a good fixture in chat, says Manon. Maybe it's not the greatest fixture. Often this season, I've tripled up against Sunderland, and it's not gone my way. And you're absolutely right to see that. But bringing in Kudus is for the long run. Again, I do expect him to tick away nicely. At 6.4 million, I don't expect him to get me crazy hauls week in, week out, but I don't think he's a bad pick at all. And I think because we're at a state this season where I feel like we're absolutely seeking for minutes. There's not many assets in the game that are absolutely nailed through this period, and the congestion is quite rough. And I feel like Kudus will get nice minutes over this run. And again, with the set piece share that he's on, I'm quite confident that he'll get some returns over this next 5 at least. So just to touch off Mane, who is the 4.5 striker in FPL. I don't think he quite plays striker. I think he's more of a 10 for Wolves.
Yeah.
And I did watch that game, Wolves versus West Ham, because again, the Saturday games weren't very intriguing in my opinion. But he was very, very bright, I have to say. He also won the penalty, and the goal he scored, he picked it up on the turn. A very, very nice turn. And I have to say, when you see a spark like that from such a young player, 2007 he was born in, I believe, you have to start putting your eyes on him, and that's exactly the type of asset you want at 4.5 million for one of the poorest team in the league, and you
Yeah,
don't mind how poor they are as long as he's going to pick up some sort of points. But to answer your question, Chris, would I pick him up? I would say I would, but not to start him every single week. When you look at my
yeah,
structure, I have Raul Jimenez and Igor Thiago, which I don't love in terms of structure. I feel like there is way more value in terms of midfielders, but when you have an asset at 4.5 million, I have absolutely no issues with that. Similar to Dorgu, he's very close to some of the other 4 million assets, and as a bench option, I don't mind it at all. But in terms of starting week in week out, I don't love it at all.
No,
Um,
no, no, I agree. I think Wolves also has fixtures coming up. They've got Everton away. I'm also some fan, so I don't think that's going to be an easy game for them. To Newcastle after that, and then City. So these aren't fixtures. But if you're looking at a wild card later on, like a 4.5 playing, if he continues to play and show some form, that's a great enabler for the rest of your team, isn't it? So, yeah, cool.
Absolutely. And just on Arsenal, because I do feel like we need to touch off this, Gabriel
Yeah,
and Royce coming up with massive holes. From my perspective, and I'm sure a lot of you ladies and gentlemen will be in the same boat as me, but I held on to Nkapie, and I actually feel like it was the right play because his minutes are there with an unknown return date for Calafiori. We didn't know he was going to miss out. And I'm not going to say it was unlucky, but there are some unicorns in FPL. As good as we know Gabriel can be, he happened to score another goal, and for me that's all it was. I don't feel like he's going to score a goal every single week, and I'm not going to break my team apart to get Gabriel in if I know Hincapié is going to play. Now I will have to sell Hincapié one way or another, likely going into Liverpool at home.
yeah.
But if I do get the nod that he's going to start, which we probably are likely going to do, with all the Arsenal news that we do get, I have to hold on to him, and I will not be bringing in Gabriel because it's not a phenomenal fixture in my opinion. As poor and as good as Arsenal have been defensively, Declan Rice on the other hand, I feel like there is a fair conversation to have there. Chris, isn't there? Phenomenal asset again with his roots to points, how good he is for bonus, how good he is for Defcon. We can speak about all the ways he gets points, but
Yeah.
at that price point he comes in, it is definitely justifiable to go for him over the likes of Bukayo Saka. The question for me is he better than a Jurriën Timber or a Gabriel? Would you rather
Yeah.
have the double up and Saka? I think that is a conversation I'd be willing to have. Now, I know it is heavily disappointing with Saka missing out in this game versus Bournemouth, but,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
He
know,
got
I
an assist, right? He came on, he got his assist. He looked, he was in and around it as well. So
for me, that's absolutely no surprise. Again, a player like Saka, who has came back from injury this season, and Arteta's team are on for the league, so he's going to rotate one way or another. And I don't think he'll be benched for this game versus Liverpool at home at
yeah,
all. I actually feel like it is a decent game for him. So I will be holding on to all of my Arsenal assets unless I get word that Hincapié is not going to play. And if I do, which we'll talk about in my Game Week 21 team selection transfer plans, but I'll happily move him on. Elsewhere in my
would
team,
you say? But there's a 3.2 million difference right now between Rice and Saka. And Saka, I love him as a footballer. I'm an England fan, obviously, and he's incredible. But it's a lot of money, and he's been doing all right. He's been chipping in with the assist, like he's got the odd goal, but it's not been like premium asset smashing it, right? It's not been you've not been looking at captaincy, right? Really for Saka. So I don't know. I get it. If you've got him, yeah, it's kind of maybe crazy to get rid. But I also I think if you're looking to come into Arsenal, yeah, as you say, your decisions between defence or double up on the midfield, or you might have Raya as well. Defensively they do look a little bit more porous maybe than they were earlier in the season. So yeah, and the fixtures especially coming up. I say Liverpool game. So I mean, I think if I can segue, so if we segue into your game week 21 team and decisions, I've been looking at your team, and I I can see. We'll go through it in a minute. I can see forward and midfield seems pretty straightforward to me. It's at the back where I don't know what on earth you're going to do. I kind of feel that's where all your questions are. So you've got O'Reilly against Brighton, right? That's just a lock. I'm presuming there's no discussion there. And then you've got Hall, who's a yellow flag. Now, if he's playing, I'm presuming he's also a lock if that flag's off, right?
absolutely.
But maybe you don't know if he is. You've got Fulham's Anderson against like managerless Chelsea. So like, what is going on there? Like Chelsea, God knows what's happening there. I mean, God knows what that's going to look like. They're not suddenly going to fall apart or anything, but who knows? Who knows when there's going to be a new manager, and who knows it's going to be? I mean, it's probably this Rosenior, but like, anything could happen there. It's a weird time. So that's a question mark. And then you've got your two, obviously your double Arsenal offence playing against Liverpool. So what are you thinking? What is your thinking? Is it a back three next week, and who's going to be in it?
Yeah, ultimately, let's start on Saka first off. And here's my Game Week 21 team for anyone who is watching. And I'll read it out in just a second. But just on Bukayo Saka, I think you're absolutely fair. He's not been that explosive asset. But Chris, when I look at his points in recent weeks, and he's actually taken away so nicely. I think you're right about what you said about captaincy. Look, he's not one that we'd be keen on captain, especially with how his minutes in recent weeks slash his returns in general. But 4 points versus Bournemouth, 6 versus Villa, 7 versus Brighton, 3 versus Everton, 11 versus Wolves, 4 versus Villa, 6 versus Brentford, 5 versus Chelsea. I mean, that's not too bad, considering when you have the likes of Erling Haaland, where we're not putting the armband on anyone else. I think for an asset that we're not captaining, I don't have too many worries with the likes of Saka. And we do know, they're scoring plenty of goals. He's just not being involved. And again, maybe you could say that, maybe that suggests that we should go with other options. But I know the type of player Saka is, in my opinion, right now. I would say, he's the best winger, if not the best winger in the league for me, with no Mohamed Salah in it. And look, I just think I'd be quite confident of holding on to him when Arsenal are on for the league and we know they're going to score goals. And that's just my own opinion. It's not been good enough for 10 plus million.
It's fine. He's a top 10 defender, midfielder. It's only the Rice thing. I mean, I don't think it's a bad hold. I couldn't afford to get him in, so that's why I've never owned him this year when the fixtures kind of look right. But yeah, I can't see myself getting off Rice unless he's properly injured and not only 50% injured.
Absolutely. So, and just to run through my team again, and we'll talk about my defence. So on goal, we've got Alisson with Arsenal away, like you said, Lewis Hall, O'Reilly and Timber. 4 in midfield with Cherki, Kuna, Saka, Kudus. 3 up top in Haaland, Raul and Thiago. On the bench, I've got Dubravka, Anderson, Hincapié and Weaver. I've actually got a really, really interesting team, and you were right, there are a few potential issues. I actually don't think they're necessarily problems just yet, but they could well be going into the game week. My team is very interesting. And the reason I say this is I think when you look at my team, right now, you're like, Christ, that team needs a wild card. And I can understand that. But I think when you break it down, Thiago, Sunderland at home, not the greatest, not the worst fixture. Brentford look good on penalties. Raul, Chelsea at home, no manager, also on penalties. Very good minutes recent weeks. Erling Haaland, don't need to talk to you about that. Bournemouth, who have looked one of the worst teams defensively in the league in the last few weeks. Kudus, also on penalties, in my opinion. Bukayo Saka, potentially on penalties, Liverpool at home. On for the league, Liverpool poor defensively. And then Kuna, who is also on penalties with Burnley away. So 7 players in my 11. 6 players in my 11 on penalties. And then Ryan Cherki, who is one of the most on form players in the league.
100%. I think your midfield and forward is great. I think it's a bit different to some people's, but I think it's perfect. But so go on to defence. That's what I'm intrigued by.
With 1 million in the bank and 1 free transfer, I'm actually 0.1 million away from doing Hincapié up to Gabriel. But for me, absolutely no issues with that. I'm never one to have a problem with not being able and being priced out of a player. And the reason for that is I always feel like there's alternatives. I don't feel like that Gabriel is going to score every single week. As much of a unicorn as he is, I'll happily hedge my bets with Jurriën Timber. Fine by me. And I'll bring in whether that's a Keane if he's back into the team, a Tarkowski or a Collins, or even going elsewhere, potentially Van de Ven, Pedro Porro. I know Gabriel is the one we'll be talking about for weeks now, and he'll be the one who's getting the price rises every single week. And to be honest, by next game week or the week after, he could be up to 7 million. But I don't think he's going to get these phenomenal goals every single week. And he's the best Arsenal defender. I absolutely don't doubt that. And he's the best defender in the whole entire game. But if I can pick up some value elsewhere, and I think that the structure is going to change where I might want the likes of Cole Palmer in my team later down the line and knock down some of my forwards, I have fires elsewhere to put out, and I'd be quite confident in the likes of Lewis Hall and Timber for starts anyway. You're right about potentially playing Anderson versus Chelsea, look where they are missing their manager, but the way I looked at that game in particular, again at Derby, I've gone with, I think Chelsea are still going to score goals. I don't think it matters who their manager is. It's a good fixture for Chelsea. I know Fulham have
Yeah,
looked somewhat decent, but I would prefer Fulham to score a goal than keep a clean sheet in this game for me. And sure, Anderson is great with the DEFCON, of course, but you know what? Why not be a bit more optimistic with the likes of Raul Jimenez, who've been on somewhat decent form? So you're right. The move for me this game week will likely come in the defence. It's just really dependent on Piero Nkapie. And I think even if he does start this game or not, I'm likely to get rid of him due to the fixture run that they have.
yeah. I mean, but so who are you looking at? So on those defensive options, we don't need to talk about Gabriel again. We know who he is. I've got him back in now. I don't have Timber. I've only got two at last moment. I've got Gabriel Keane, who I brought in after his great haul, and then mysteriously not playing. So I hope he plays today. O'Reilly Dallo again for the great United. I'm an idiot. The great United run. I brought him in, and Alderete from Sunderland. I've got a pretty apart from Gabriel. I've got a pretty cheap back line. I say Keane's 4.8, Dallo 4.5, Alderete's now 4.1 for Sunderland. I'm quite happy with that defence because I've got a bit of everything and I can move with fixtures. So who are you thinking would be, if Hincapie goes out, if you don't think he's going to play or you just want to make a change, what are you looking at? Who are you looking at? Who would you advise people to go towards?
Yeah, so in front of you have the fixture ticker from game week 20, which is the current game week, up to game week 24. For me, when I'm looking at fixtures, I like to look a small bit more short term than I think Manny will do. Again, it's quite hard
Yeah,
when we have to talk about chip strategy as well in just a second. But
yeah,
so this is the fixture ticker from game week 2024. Again, just to note, game week 20 is still here because we still have so many games to play. But
yeah,
if
yeah,
I was choosing the defender from game week 21, let's just say to 24, from this list, this is ordered from alphabetical from each team in the league. Again, the obvious one and the standout for me is probably James Tarkowski. Again, with no Keane in the team, he's gobbling up all the DEFCON. First half
yeah,
DEFCON in the game before this week. And like I just feel like he's the obvious one for me. And I also really like Nathan Collins for Brentford. Again, Brentford have looked structurally sound in my opinion. He's good for DEFCON for a defender. And he's also good for bonus as a defender, which I was trying to say. And also the fixtures look great. And he also provides some significant attack and threat. So they would be the main two for me. I think if I was
yeah,
trying to be a small bit more differential, it's because I think they are the pick out of the bunch for many. I do quite like the likes of Van de Ven and Pedro Porro. I say
yeah.
Pedro Porro hesitantly as a Spurs fan. I actually don't like him, as a player for us, I'll be honest, because he's very, very frustrating. But in terms of an FPL asset, if Spurs look a bit more tightened up at the back, I'd be interested to see how the Sunderland game goes today. But
And
with
also
Bournemouth,
0.7 million variants, right? It's a lot of money to type in Porro, and Van der Ven's outscored him this season, and he's popping up, getting the odd goal, and he's got 3 goals this year. He's doing very well. I had Van der Ven right at the start of the season when he was 4.5, and then I changed it. But yeah, I think Van der Ven's not bad. What do you think about the Villa defense? I mean, Villa quietly, not that quietly. They're pushing on. They're in are they second or third at the moment. They're second before City played, but they've got a few challenging fixtures, but they've got some good ones as well. Would you be interested at all in a Villa defenders?
yeah. So interesting to say that. I love Matty Cash as not only FPL asset, but you would have missed this, Chris. But in game week 5, I actually brought in Matty Cash for his goal.
Okay.
Like brought him in that game week and he scored, and then
Is
for
that your
2 weeks.
speciality? So who's going to score? Who's going to
Oh,
score
I'm
next week?
very, very jammy. It's the only reason I'm somewhat at a respectable rank. Just jammy at bringing in transfers. But
Yeah, yeah,
if I were to choose, Matty Cash would be the player for me. Again, I don't think when you look at their defense that anyone is particularly good for DEFCON. Cash provides that kind of decent at DEFCON, somewhat decent anyway, and very good attacking threat. When you pair that with somewhat decent fixtures for Villa, it looks quite good. And Villa are, they're in a very good spot right now.
yeah,
Confidence
yeah.
is
No, I
high.
was looking at their fixtures. They've got they've got Palace away, Everton at home, Newcastle away, Brentford at home, Bournemouth away, Brighton. It's got a decent run there. They could concede in some of those games, but it's a decent run. It's not until kind of Chelsea in the 29 they're playing against one of the top sort of 4 rivals. So as it stands, I should say not in absolutely. So I think they're decent. I also think Sunderland have been a decent option. I think I think there's a number of different ways you can go a bit more. And as you say, you don't have to just panic about getting in double Arsenal because they can get clean sheets. after Liverpool have got Forest, United, Leeds, and Sunderland, and then Brentford. So they've got a run of 5 games. They could easily get clean sheets in all of those. So maybe for those weeks is where you want a double Arsenal defence. But Liverpool home, Liverpool can score there easy, right? I mean, I don't see that. I don't see that being a clean sheet for Arsenal, if I'm honest.
Exactly, and I spoke about in game week 18, about bringing in. The reason I didn't do Hincapié to Gabriel is because I don't think it was necessary, and particularly when I thought that Arsenal weren't going to keep clean sheets versus Villa, Bournemouth, Liverpool. And it's just been so frustrating that Gabriel has come up with goals, even though my minutes thought process and also, the clean sheet thing has kind of been there. It's just, again, he's a unicorn, and I don't think
it's a good job we don't lose points for blind passes that concede.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like,
goals,
anyway, going back to the fixture ticker. Again, I just want to go back to Pedro Porro because again, it is risky, and
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
For me, I know you're saying he is more expensive. And Van de Ven has been the one to get the goals this year. But again, I look at, how sustainable it is long term. I feel like Porro, when I watch Spurs, I think, who's more likely to get somewhat of a return? And for me, I think it's Porro. Again, he's on some of the corners. He's on free kicks. And also, he loves a shot. He loves a shot, as poor as he's been. And in terms of league numbers, very, very high on crosses. And Thomas Frank also loves crosses. So as much as they don't come off so far this season, I always feel like he provides more attacking threat, and I don't think it's sustainable for the likes of Van de Ven, who's done very well this year, don't get me wrong, but that's just.
But what about DEFCONs? Do you not think Van de Ven's more likely to get your DEFCONs than? I mean, I know we went on not to work lengthily about this we did last time, but do you not think that's Porro's surely less likely to get the DEFCONs, right?
And that's the thing. I actually feel like I don't think either of them are great for DEFCONs, in my opinion. I think they're actually probably.
This is a Spurs fan talking.
Yeah. They're probably both equally average at DEFCON, I would say.
I think they both might have got free. Having said that, I'm looking at the data here. It looks like they both might have got free DEFCON returns. So,
exactly, yeah. So if you're providing more attacking threat and similar DEFCON rates, I mean, therefore, if you're going to have a good game, for example, let's just say Porro gets an assist in DEFCON, he'll be on for 3 bonus. And that's just me looking at it from my perspective.
Porro, if Porro had Kane in front of him, right?
Oh, yeah.
With the ball in, that's a different prospect than Richarlison or very quickly as an aside, what do you think of Johnson? I mean, I don't want to go into transfers too long. We can do it another week. But what do you think of Johnson going? Were you surprised by that? Are you kind of... you bothered?
There's a lot of noise from that Johnson transfer, I think, from a lot of Spurs fans. I see a lot of people saying, selling our top goal scorer, what's this about? Where's the ambition? Yada, yada, yada. I think it's a brilliant move both ways, not only for us, but for Johnson as well. As much as he mightn't want to go because how he settled into our team and, how comfortable he is. He loves a lot of our players, like Pop Sarr, James Maddison. They got on like a house on fire. You see it in Maddison's vlogs, but I do think Palace, for 32.5 million, I think it was, 10% sell-on fee for Forest, I believe it is also.
Yeah.
Great move both ways. And it's something that is so rare for Tottenham to do. Within the first few days of the transfer window, particularly January, we have 3 outings. Maybe it might be 4 now, but I think it's great business from Tottenham. And looking at Johnson.
When Richarlison goes to Everton, who's going to play up front? That's the
yeah. You wish. And to be honest, I wouldn't be.
I absolutely
wouldn't mind it.
Love Richarlison. Sam used to hate Richarlison, but he's been banging in regularly.
Absolute hero.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I don't think we should talk about transfers too much because it's very early in the season. Maybe if we're back here next week, we can see what's going on there, the big transfer window, because that is going to be a lot of players, assets moving about, options coming in. But what I do want to talk to you about, actually, one more question before I talk about it, is keeper. You've just gone Becker, no nonsense. You got Dubravka there against United. United, not brilliant, right? Do you not? It's a no thought at all. It is United, isn't it? Have I got that right? Isn't it? Is United next week? Have I got that right? Sorry. Yeah, it's home to United. Is there no thought at all that you would prefer a keeper facing United than a keeper facing Arsenal?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I have thought about this. I definitely have thought about this. For me, first off, Alisson, not the greatest own, I'll be honest. Probably one of my mistakes of the season because how much he is. But, he's had his clean sheet versus Leeds and his other clean sheet. And, I've been close. It's been 1 goal here and there.
Yeah.
But this game week, again, I think going into the game week, because I've got Jerry and Timber also, I'll be hoping for a 0-0. If we look at the reverse fixture that happened at Anfield, it was a 1-0 goal a game with Dominic Szoboszlai scoring an absolute screamer. I do feel like this will be the same type of thing. In my opinion, when I'm looking at this game, Arsenal will go out all guns blazing, but this will be a game that Liverpool just will not want to lose.
I think it'll be tight. It'll be
Exactly.
tight. But Liverpool set piece has been a little here and there, been a few question marks, right? And that's what Arsenal seem to be masters of right now. You're basically looking forward to Gabriel nutting in, aren't you?
Yeah. That would be the inevitable. It would be so obvious. Why didn't I bench Alisson?
Rage quit from Chai.
For me, I don't think there's. I think there's more chance that Liverpool keep clean sheet.
With this squad, apart from your transfer, and when you're talking about different options, Hincapié may be out, you're pretty nailed with that. Then I mean, I think the rest of it looks great. I think there's some good solid players and there's some good differentials. And I think you need one or two differentials to hit, and you're away. I'm kind of like just very quickly. I'm for 20 before we go into chips. For me, for 2021, I've got Verbruggen, Gabriel, Dalot, Keane, Rodgers, Bruno, Foden, and Garner. I've got to work out where Rice goes. I've got Rodgers, Bruno, Foden, Garner, Rice, and then I've got Ekitike and Haaland up front. So I'm thinking about defence, whether I put in. I've got O'Reilly and Alderete, so I'm likely to bring in O'Reilly for Dalot, I think, and swap that in. And the defence, same as you, in a little bit is where I'm thinking is what I'm thinking of. But yeah, I can't now put Rice on the bench again. I can't deal with it. I'd have to be too much for me.
Yeah, so, and I feel like going into the game week, the obvious thing to do, because of if we look at numbers or whatever, the obvious thing to do would be get rid of your Liverpool assets, and it's not a great game for them. But I just look at it, I try to look past that. Liverpool will be up for this game. There's no doubt about that. If we look at throughout this season so far, as poor as they've been, on bad form they go beat Madrid, on bad form beat Villa, beat Arsenal. I just feel like Liverpool are always up for a game like this. And I actually feel like they've been slight bit underrated defensively, I think, because of the goals that they're conceding. They are from set pieces. And they've sacked their set piece coach.
And Liverpool they've got Burnley and Bournemouth straight after that, right? Those are two,
exactly.
And Newcastle, who aren't on top form by any means. So they've got 3 games that expect to win before City comes up. We've got Arsenal, City, and then there's 3 in the middle. You think so? You don't want to be getting rid of Liverpool. I don't actually have any at the moment. Once I got rid of Salah in the season, I've got Ekitike, pardon me. But I had Gravenberch at one point, managed to miss all his points. But I was down with Szoboszlai. Never quite got to Van Dijk. But yeah, I think I'll be looking at Liverpool assets forward and slip next week maybe, because I think we'll see how this week how the Arsenal the week after that, rather after the Arsenal game, I'll be looking at them. Anywho. This is one thing I wanted to talk about, and we put it in the intro, and this is really interesting for me as well, because I need help. I'm still saying I could be almost at 2 million now, which is awful, but would be better than where I am had I had Rice. But in the team, but I'm basically, we've all got our chips now. We've got our 4 chips again to play. What have you got a strategy in place? This is the opportunity now to gain some momentum in the second half of the season, where some would say the more casual players have maybe kind of dropping off or not as engaged. Obviously, you've got games coming thick and fast in this period in January. What are you thinking from a chip perspective? Do you have a strategy, or are you a very active manager?
Yeah, my strategy, and I think this will go into most seasons, to be honest, is to absolutely do nothing until we have more information. And I think if I were to put it into on paper, it would essentially be not to worry about triple captain or bench boosts. Forget about them. For hit also, in terms of wildcard, it would be use it when I need it. Between now and game week 26, let's just say that's a window before we get any information about some of the blanks, maybe in 29, doubles in 28, doubles 34, whatever. I don't think there is any world in which I would use my wildcard anyway this game week or next week. And the reason for that is I think we're currently in a very tricky period, right? Sure, there are some players that you would definitely want to bring in over the ones I've had. Let's just say a Gabriel, a Rice, for example. You might want Cole Palmer over Saka, and that is completely fair.
But you mentioned Cole Palmer now 3 times. I sense a move is in the. I've got my crystal ball here. I can see you moving for Cole Palmer in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah, decent upside, but. Yeah, what it comes down to for me is just it's very tricky, and I think you'll be chasing last week's points. I mean, sure, Gabriel and Rice are probably better than who I've had, but that's not to say that Timber can't come up with a
Yeah.
return. And
Yeah,
I
Timber's been
still
great
don't think
most of the
Gabriel is
season.
going to do it every single week. And I know
Yeah.
maybe that is me being um, because I don't own him. But I just feel like, if I'm being realistic, Saka's going to start this next game. He's as good as Royce can be in this game. Maybe the value's not there, but I don't want funds for anyone really. To be honest, the more expensive strikers, you have the likes of Ekatike. I don't want Ekatike in this current point in time. There's actually a lot of managers who will sell him. The only player that I would want to change my structure and take money from the likes of Asaka would be the likes of Cole Palmer. And for me currently, I don't think that is necessary for my own team. So my general consensus would be, unless I get struck by really bad injuries, I will not be playing the wildcard until we get more information. And the reason for that is we've seen season after season after season,
Yeah.
something comes up and your wildcard is always more valuable, whether that's to set up for, dead ending into a blank game week or setting up crazy doubles before wildcarding out of it. It is always better to wait. And again, that just goes for game theory. Is it always better to react when you have more information and let other people go in front of you, so then you can react to what you need to do. Like, I think, let's just say you are in the closing 5 game weeks, you're chasing by 10 points. Well, and the person in front of you has used their wildcard. Well, you are at an advantage, knowing that you have to react and maybe do something a bit different with your team and change things up. So I'd always be of
So you're basically your strategy from a chip perspective. You're keeping everything dry at the moment. You're not rushing in with anything, and you're going to hold on, certainly with wildcards and stuff, for when we have information. So your tip is hold on to 26. But if you're coming in, because that's when we'll start to get how the cups start progressing. There's going to be less doubles, right? This is one of the. I think it's a sad development, but it's also smarter fixture planning. So there'll be less doubles than there used to be in the heyday when I used to play the game. When even had I think it was a treble one year. But it's just realistically we're going to have a couple of blanks and a couple of doubles related to cups, and that's kind of it really, unless there's some major event or fixture postponement. That. But that aside, it's going to be late on that this is going to come. And as you say, you'll get some forewarning. So are you basically very much that your free hit and your wild card are held to deal with that, unless something else happens? That's your strategy, basically. Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely, as boring as it is, I just don't think it's necessary. Again, 3 game weeks ago,
and we had 5. We had 5 cards.
Exactly.
We had 5
exactly. So,
and you've already burnt through them and done a hit.
And exactly. So I think right now I'm trying to fix my team. Why am I taking all these hits and doing transfers if my team is not progressing to a better state? And I think in comparison, I have a Sharky over a Foden. I have a Saka instead of a Palmer, for example, or a Rice, whatever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And I have a Raul over. A lot of people have a Wilson. A lot of people might have some other Arsenal asset in midfield, and then Thiago, which a lot of people still have, and I have him instead of an Ekatike, and they play Arsenal this week. So again, I just don't feel like it's a good or the greatest window. I think if your team is struggling, though, I can understand why you might do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got loads of injuries or you've just not, it's just all going completely wrong. I'm quite happy. Even my rank is awful. I'm quite happy with my team at the moment and a bit of flexibility. But I don't think it. The thing about chips, especially like wildcard, is that later in the season, the impact is less. If there's a very good reason for doing it, like you're trying to deal with a massive fixture swing, or you're trying to deal with a double game week or blanks, which is most likely time is going to happen from 30 onwards. But if your team's just all over the place, making the change now can you can maximize that point impact. I just don't think there's much case, unless your team is dreadful, to be using a wildcard right now. I can't see that, or a free. I just can't see what situation would really benefit you in any massively meaningful way. Just because it's so unpredictable. No one's got the template team is kind of there, but there's a lot of variance still, and no one's absolutely smashing it every week. So I don't think that's. I agree with you. So 2 other questions about that. Bench boost again. Is that just save for a double, save for later in the season? And are you someone that loves bench boosts or hates them? I find them annoying. And one year I played a bench boost at the end of the last game week, so I haven't managed to get rid of it. And I had 9 players play anyway because it was rotated. It's a complete waste of time. What do you think about bench boosts? And again, is that going to be held for you later on with the other chips?
I absolutely hate the bench boost, and I think next season I'll be using it in game week 1. Honestly, it causes.
I did. I'm not sure it was that great, my bench boost game week 1, but I did use it.
It causes way too much hassle from my own perspective, and again, what makes it even more frustrating is, we look at weeks like last game week is a good example. Leeds keep a clean sheet versus Liverpool, massive holes there. Um, and then Sunderland, like these are the players who we would have been holding on for, but you would have never clicked the bench boost versus Liverpool. Um, so I just feel like I'm gonna not worry about that, hold on to it until the time is right. Usually after the wild card, and that's why I think it's so important to hold on to the wild card. Usually these ships go pat and parcel with each other. Wild card, bench boost, then free hit whenever the blank is or when the double is. So
yeah, and a double game week is your triple captain, right? I mean,
example, yeah.
ideally, either it's a free hit or a triple captain. If you you're going to hope there's going to be at least two double game weeks of some description. One might be big, one might be small, and that's where you're going to be working towards playing those chips. That's where you should. That'd be optimum doing that, unless you've had a premonition that Haaland's going to score 6 against someone or something like that. And what one other question I've got actually, I'm getting something in the chat, which is there going to be a manager chip this year? And no is the answer to that. Unless something's, I think it would have dropped by now, but it's going to happen. I quite like the Asman. Did you like that, the assistant manager? I thought, or did you hate that as well?
No, I did. I did like it because it was something different, but I didn't like how good it was. I think it could have been tweaked. A tweak here and there, and it was perfect. Yeah. I always think chips are good for the game, and if there were no chips, I actually think the game would die off a bit more earlier. I think because we get the second wave of chips, people will be coming back into the game with transfers and wildcards, whatever. And it is.
But I love the Asman, and just for those in the chat, there was not going to be an assistant manager this year. Whether they'll bring it back in the future, I don't know. Already this year, they've done the 2 lots of chips thing, which was new this year. They've obviously done the DEFCONs, which is the big change this year. So they're not going to throw in another thing. We do a bit with FPL Towers, but they, they think they care a lot. I know that everyone sometimes thinks they don't, but the PL absolutely care deeply and think hard about this stuff, and they take all the feedback in, and they don't just do things at a whim. This game is very important to them in the Premier League. And so where we know assistant manager, chips later on. So final question about chips, and then we can probably any further questions is for you for a bench boost or a triple captain. Do you have a points target that you want for that? Does it have to be like 15 or 20 points for it to feel like a good use of that chip? Or again, is it just you're not even thinking that way?
Yeah, minimum 12 for me on bench boost. That means everyone's played and you've had one return, likely. A good bench boost, I would consider 16, and a great bench boost, anything over 16, to be honest. Triple captain, you want at least one return if it's in a single game week. If it's a double, I want... I'd be greedy because you're assuming it's a double. You're likely putting it on a good player. I want 2 attacking returns, which is usually at least 30 points, assuming some sort of bonus. So that's how I would feel on that, Chris. Again, it is relative to what is happening in the game week, I suppose, and who it is.
I still remember the Aguero triple captaincy that I'd kind of played back in the day when it was double game week. I think it was triple captains then. But yeah, it was some insane amount of points, like 80 points or something in the week. It was crazy. I played on Haaland in the week against Leeds, I think it was, where he got absolutely nothing. So that was disappointing. A chip fail for me this year, but I imagine Haaland will be in the mix again when the triple captaincy comes around. Just because there's very few other players that you can feel have that real chance of a high return any week. It's just it's been a weird one this year because Salah's kind of dropped off. Obviously, maybe he'll come back different from the AFCON. You haven't got like a Kane anymore. You haven't got a Son as was anymore. Saka's not hitting those big numbers. It's hard to think, obviously I play players that have done well, like Foden did incredibly well and Rice this week, but you're not really going to captain on those. I do know someone that did triple captain on the Foden when he got his first big haul, which was incredible. But yeah, it's hard to look at anybody beyond Haaland for triple captaincy, really. Obviously, again, depends on the circumstance of a particular team. If Liverpool have a double game week and no one else does, and Salah's back playing and in form, then that changes it. But yeah. So okay, so just to summarise there, chip strategy, not really need to do it next, but there will be doubles, and it will be 30, kind of around usually 30 onwards. I think you sometimes get the odd rogue thing happening. Obviously, if there's any fixture kind of congestion, or if there's any games called off for bad weather, then that can impact things. I play the EFL game, nobody else plays that, and they have just waves and waves of games called off. So there's gonna be they have double game weeks almost every other week, and they've got a triple game week coming up. I think it's just it's absolute madness. So if you do miss double game weeks and all that, give the EFL game a go. It's total madness, but it's kind of fun. But yeah, sadly in the FPL, a bit less of the doubles than we used to have. But yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
so we're gonna round it up there, lads. We've hit the 40-minute mark, and thank you all for joining us. Chris, you're absolutely right there, and it's gonna be interesting how to see how this plays out. I feel like we're gonna see a structure change where there's Cole Palmer come back into the mix, Salah comes back from AFCON, and also Bruno Fernandes come back from an injury. These are big players who we know can get
Yeah.
those big holes that we're looking for. So,
Bruno,
um,
sorry, you're absolutely right. Bruno's completely. I'd missed over him. It's because he's obviously out of my thinking at the moment. But yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed the Sunday stream. Again, I will be doing a transfer plans or a team selection on my own channel, so do check that out if you want more from me. Chris, anything left to say? And thank you for joining us.
I said, well, two things. Two quick plugs. We've got, if you're a member of Fantasy Football Scout, we've got a brand new thing called the eye test, which we aggregate some really cool stuff like all the highlights and well, get the goals from games. So if you want to look back and see where the goals are coming from and see that, we've got that as a new feature. Check that out. And if you use Live FPL, or if you don't and you want to track data as it goes, Live FPL have a brand new app in the App Store. Live FPL, one of our partner sites, they've got an app in the Android and iOS, so check those out. Other than that, I'm really happy to be here. Maybe I'll be here next week. Hopefully next week I'm going to be talking about how I've eclipsed your score, Chai, and not another awful bad beat where yet again I've picked the wrong player or put him on the bench or something. But thank you very much for putting up with me and listening to me. And yeah, happy New Year to again to everybody in the chat. Hopefully your arrows are green in a very very busy January. And yeah, cheers.
Happy New Year, everyone. As usual, we will see you in the next.